I am here for all the rights of the children all around the world, not only in Canada. I think it's very important to, yes, of course, being acceptable and inclusive with everything once it's the person is able to decide for themselves. I'm here to protect the children, to give them a voice which they're not able to themselves because they don't know better yet.
And then the Canadian flag, they have a pride flag underneath it. I don't have any problem with the pride flag, but that's decimating the Canadian flag. It's a disgrace. It's shameful.
We have to learn, even from COVID times, it's like we have to stand united. I mean, there are issues globally happening that is dividing people. And I think we really should stand united against these kind of tyranny.
Well, it's the second annual 1 Million March for Children, standing together to protect children from the radical gender ideology that's become normalized in schools across the country. I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News in Surrey, BC, to report to you on what takes place. For those of you who don't know, the 1 Million March for Children is a nationwide demonstration organized by the non-profit, family-oriented group called Hands Off Our Kids. It calls people to stand together against the sexual indoctrination that has become normalized in schools. Now, in British Columbia, a lot of that is stamped and approved by our sexual orientation gender identity program called SOGI 1, 2, 3. That's why a lot of the people who have gathered here have been doing chants against that as well. They've gathered in front of the building behind me here, which has a massive Queer Rights Are Human Rights banner in front of it. And no surprise, this is the office of BC's Education Minister, Roshna Singh, as well as the Surrey Teachers Association. So they've gathered here to do some chants, have some speeches. I want to ask the demonstrators here what they think about a couple of things. Why is it important to be here? What do they think about the difference in size? Last year in Surrey, we saw thousands show up for this march. It's only been approximately about 80 today, but also in contrast, there's also no counter-protesters here as well. Let's take a flashback to the union members who showed up to protest against this demonstration last year. Now, that queer rights is human rights, that's something we hear a lot of the teachers say when there's parents who simply want things like the sexually explicit books you're seeing on the screen out of their schools. They'll say, well, if you say you're against those inclusive resources, then you are in breach of BC's Human Rights Code, which protects people from being treated badly or differently because of their gender identity or expression. So I'm going to ask protesters today what they think about that message being on that tax-paid-for building. Also, what they think of our upcoming election and how important this parental rights issue will be for those going to the voting booth and more.
So you need to face us. You need to give up your job, the cushy job you got. You're getting paid from home, while we suffer and our kids suffer. And there is no transparency. You remember, this elections, you will not be there.
Why was it important for you to be here today?
Children that are 5, 6 years
to ensure that this kind of nonsense doesn't continue.
I have 2 kids here in Canada. They're grade 1 and 5. 1 and 6. And I know what they're teaching at school right now. So school's supposed not to put the parents away from the kids because we have our rights for our own children.
Well, I don't believe in SOGI. Children need to be innocent. And to me, in our province, you're not finished growing till you're 25. And then the Canadian flag, they have a pride flag underneath it. I don't have any problem with the pride flag, but that's decimating the Canadian flag. It's a disgrace. It's shameful.
I am here for all the rights of the children all around the world, not only in Canada. I think it's very important to, yes, of course, being acceptable and inclusive with everything once it's the person is able to decide for themselves. I'm here to protect the children, to give them a voice which they're not able to themselves because they don't know better yet.
This is what we've been doing for the longest time in different communities around BC. If this is the real voice of the people and the parents, the children, the families. We are the taxpayers, and we are being put at risk. What we need is not being addressed. It's being addressed right here. The government doesn't know what's good for us. We know what's good for us. That's why we gather here to raise awareness, to make our voices heard.
This is Pierre Barnes, a familiar face to this fight. You've done so much research, really exposing the horrific books that are normalized in school libraries. I'm asking people today what their message is for Premier David Eby, who's currently still the leader and often construes this fight as something hateful.
To everyone in BC, we need to stand up together against hate. And to those people out there who are promoting that hate, the adults targeting vulnerable kids, politicians promoting hate, shame on you.
What's your message if for some reason he sees this? Yes.
Well, he should resign. He was never elected at the first place. Right? David Eby is a non-elected official, and he keeps pushing ideologies and dangerous things into our province, right?
This is Amrit Baring with the Freedom Party of BC. Now, the national call to action for today came from Hands Off Our Kids, but just like last year, Baring organized his own one. Why was it important to do that?
We protested against SOGI because of this. This is in Surrey school libraries, all BC school libraries, all Canadian libraries. Government admits it, Surrey School Board admits it, RCMP admits it, but they say they're not going to do anything about it.
What if governments are trying to reinvent the wheel when the greatest teacher of all times has already laid out the perfect blueprint for a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Introducing the Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport. This special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love, ethics, and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another and to be part of something bigger that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport at freedompassport.ca. And right now, all orders in North America come with free shipping and a free downloadable song with every purchase. Well, why is it important to continue standing against the radical gender ideology in schools?
Yeah, I think we're going to stand fighting until this is removed. What I heard today when Amrit was speaking was there's 18 students who are identifying themselves as animals. I mean, I knew there's one or two, but learning today 18, I was quite shocked actually. And this is happening right in Surrey. We have to learn, even from COVID times, it's like we have to stand united. I mean, there are issues globally happening that is dividing people. And I think we really should stand united against these kind of tyranny.
I don't think it's a hateful because we have our rights to say what's right and wrong. Because what they're trying to do is for us to just shut our mouth just down and not to say our own opinion. They're trying to say their own, but on the other side, we have a right to say. So I don't think that's a hatred. And we are not here to say they're bad or they're doing wrong. We don't hate them. We're just trying to say what's not right and what's wrong. And we want school. The school to teach, we want school to do their own job, proper job.
We're not doing nothing against anyone. We are here for the children who are not able to make their own decision. I mean, they are being encouraged to not to tell their parents what's happening or who is talking to them at school. We are not against two-soul. We are not against LGBTQ. We are not against trans. We are not against gay or lesbian. We are not against anyone. We are here for the children.
Now, in the BC Human Rights Code, it says that these sort of things must be included. You must include transgender and diverse people. And that's often used as an excuse to say that this is an anti-human rights movement. We see that banner right on the education building there. So what are your thoughts to that?
I have a few thoughts about this, actually. So whoever's in control makes the laws. So that being said, if whoever's in charge right now, NDP and everybody else in the background, they can make as many rules as you want. They can say, you know, exercising, like they were saying, is bad for you during COVID. This has nothing to do with human rights. We all love human beings, one another, all humanity, all race, all religions. Everybody's choice is their own choice, but what we're trying to get at is that when there's young kids, their futures, their mindset, their whole psychological welfare is at stake. The parents need to be informed, and there needs to be consent. When they're older, you know, if they're grade 11 or 12, that's a different story. They're a bit more mature. But young kids, this should be it should be a parent's choice, and parents should have a choice of opting in or out of this.
And you know, the big excuse of the school is that, oh, well, they're going to be exposed to this in the society, right? When I send my children to school, I expect the school to have higher standard than the society itself. You know, so I don't want my kids to be exposed to pornography in school, because they could be exposed to this in the society. Children can be exposed to drug in the society. It doesn't mean that we start to sell drug in school. So that's the same principle. So when you go through it and you start to look, well, isn't those books, and when you know the title, that help, and when you realize that this is completely inappropriate for children.
This is about the children, and they're just turning it into something it's not. Parents need to know what's happening in their children's lives. They can't take tattoos. They can't vote. They can't have alcohol. Oh, but in Evie's world, they can have toxic drugs.
Now, we look behind this tax-paid-for building, the building representing who runs our schools. They have queer rights, our human rights are up there. And that's the argument we hear, that, hey, you have to include this so-called community or else you are breaching human rights. What do you make of that?
There is no restriction in our society against any group, supposedly, unless you're liberal and you want to divide everybody into groups. However, it has nothing to do with gay rights. Yes, there should be no bullying in school. The kids should be free to be who they are. And if they want to be whatever, that's their thing.
On October 19th, British Columbians will be heading to the voting polls. How important is this issue for you when it comes to your vote?
Oh, for myself, this is really big. But I've seen in more of the light nowadays in the news, this is kind of turned to back, you know, on the back burner. But this is a big issue. This is a major issue, and people should, when they're going for voting, they should think that what's been happening and what parties are saying that they're going to remove it or not.
The Conservatives have made it very clear that SOGI will go away, certainly be reviewed. The literature, the pictures, the grooming statements that is in that literature are gone.
Well, you mentioned how these sexually explicit books in schools should be considered pornography. I sat down with a criminal defense lawyer about how they're getting around that. But looking up here, we see plastered a message. It's different than last year. You don't see the union members out here. They've got a sign here for you that is suggesting that these types of movements is against human rights. What's your thoughts on that?
There's something called shooting a gun, putting on someone else's shoulder. That's what they're doing. They are putting LGBTQ community in front and using them to say that it's for their inclusion. But this SOGI education did not came from LGBTQ. This came from organizations who want to change the concept of gender. In fact, take it out. There's no such thing as he and she.
That flag, and I've served in the Canadian Forces, should be down. So should that one over there. But no, there's only one inclusive flag in Canada, and I'm holding it.
Well, some interesting theories swirling about why there isn't counter-protesters here in Surrey today. A theory I have is that the unions themselves, their members are not coming out because of the massive backlash they received from this leaked video from Culture Guard that went viral when they tried to mobilize or planned to mobilize against the last march.
absolutely crucial that we oppose this in the streets. And this is just signs that I've seen that we're rising, that this is far more than just like a far-right transphobic protest.
And I hope they got a little bit of the message that they better stay in their lane a little bit, and that's why we're only seeing the signs up there today, but who knows for sure. Well, there you have it. That's what took place for Surrey's 1 Million March for Children. Don't forget to check out the rest of our coverage from across Canada at stopclassroomgrooming.com. And you can also donate what you can to cover our many expenses to make those reports possible while you're there.